thanks for staying with us. It's time for us to now go through the games for Division 3 and Division 2 for this weekend. Also have a look back on last weekend. And in Division 3, one of the feel-good stories of the year, we've got Heidelberg West getting their first win of the year. It's now every side in the competition's won a game, which is good news to report on. And I guess for Heidelberg West, it's always a case of just keep trying and eventually that win would come. We know the two previous clashes against Watsonia that led it at three-quarter time and haven't been able to go on with the job, but good to see Heidelberg West getting a win the weekend, albeit some inaccurate kicking nearly cost them in the end.
Yeah, you'd think when you look at it, you see 7-14 to 7-5. They only got the 9-point win, but gee, they should have probably won by a lot more. They had almost a bit over double the scoring shot. So, but yeah, as you said, it's great to see Heidelberg West finally get a win. You know, you never want to see a team go through the year or anything undefeated. So it's great for Heidelberg West.
And Noah Whanua, again the best player for Heidelberg West. He's had a great year. It's good to see when they got that win. He kicked a couple of goals and again in the best. So he's played a great season along with his brother Tavita. Two of the shining lights for Heidelberg West. They might find it a bit more difficult this weekend when they take on Parkside, and Parkside team really needing to win a game to get back in that top two as they can, because they lost a couple of weeks back to St Mary's in a game. They're probably winning a slight favourites. On the weekend they are at home to Reservoir and they looked winners, to be honest. We get the scores coming through all day and they did lead. Actually led by 3 goals at three-quarter time, and we just thought, well, they'll go on from here. And I think their average winning margin against Reservoir was about 4 or 5 goals. And you just thought, well, it's going to be another one of those wins. But Reservoir fought back in the last quarter and completely overhauled the game. It was 7 goals to 2 in that final term. And Parkside still hit the scoreboard, but Reservoir was just far too good. Darren Turner booted 8. Gorgeski kicked 4 and DeFelice kicked, I think it was 2 or 3. So they've only had 3 goal kickers of the 14 goals they've kicked, but probably their best win of the season for the Mustangs.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you think, gee, you're not often going to kick a winning score when you've only got 3 goal kickers, but when those 3 can combine for 14 goals, that's enough to get them across the line. But the biggest thing for Parkside, obviously Dallas King only kicking the 1 last week, would be, they'd be hoping he can really step up and have a big week this weekend. Heidelberg West might be a nice way to get some confidence and form back into the big fight to get another bag in the next few weeks heading into finals, because he'll be massively important, obviously, if Parkside, how well they go in the final.
Well, there's only 3 matches to go, including this round, and it makes it tough for Parkside to push back into the 2s, purely because they have to rely now on St Mary's dropping a game. And while that is more, obviously possible with such an even competition in that top 4 and 5, I guess it's always harder when it's out of your hands. I guess last weekend they had still percentage over St Mary's, which they still have, but disappointing for them to go down to Reservoir. But all credit to the Mustangs, who've said all year that they've struggled with inconsistency. But they are coming good at this latter end of the year. I think when they have to, we know Panton Hill is looking like doing the same as well. And those two sides are really fighting for that 4th position. But a couple of weeks back, should have beaten South Moraine. They've got a big win now against Parkside, their biggest goal of the year, and they're showing that they can match it with these better sides. You think Parkside will be far too good for Heidelberg West, and it won't be any surprise if they win there and win quite healthily. But having said that, Heidelberg West will take plenty of promise and confidence out of that win against Watsonia on the weekend. We'll look to use that this weekend, but you think Parkside will be too strong?
Yeah, and it sounds like a massive cliche, but Heidelberg West, they've sort of got nothing to lose. So it's they've got their first win on the board now, so all that pressure's off, and they, who knows, they're a pretty young side. Just go out, they'll have a bit of confidence from a win, and they could pull an upset, but you would lean towards Parkside.
Well, the other game looking, well, I guess not so much one-sided, but straightforward, I guess, for tipsters would be St Mary's up against Watsonia. Watsonia probably disappointed to lose that game last weekend. I think they'll come bottom of the table from the looks of it. It's going to be pretty tough for Heidelberg West to get another win and a bit of percentage back above Watsonia. But they take on St Mary's, who's probably now become the form side of the competition. You look at the wins they've had in the last couple of weeks and knocked off Parkside now, knocked off a Panton Hill team which beat them by about 4 goals a couple of weeks back. They reversed that. Probably a bit fortunate in that the game had to be taken away from Cracknell Reserve out at Panton Hill because of some poor weather, and unfortunately the ground wasn't able to be played on the weekend. It was a bit disappointing for Panton Hill, but St Mary's came from down at half time, third quarter again, 4 goals forward to 0, and they've shown throughout the season they are able to actually keep teams scoreless for long periods of time. They've done it against Parkside, done it against Reservoir in the last quarter when it counts, and on the weekend did it in the third. Just such a consistent team, a lot of young kids in there and showing plenty of promise, and it's fantastic to see the 2 sides who were bottom and second bottom last year now first and second on the ladder, with South Moraine first and St Mary's second.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see, obviously South Moraine have gone the experience role to get back to the top, bringing in Jeanette and Whitnell and those sort of big name players, where St Mary's has pretty much done it with kids, which is a great thing to see for any sort of, you'd think, the sides that will be in Division 3 next year or struggling at the moment. Get those young kids in, give them the games, and St Mary's are reaping rewards of it at the moment, as they're definitely in the conversation to get promoted into Division 2, which would be in only their second year of footy, be a fantastic achievement for the side.
I know Phil's watching the show, and he did say every time I don't tip them they win, so he's told me to tip against them for the rest of the year. But you think against Watsonia this weekend, they'll get back, they'll get another win and really push, perhaps even pinch for the first spot, because the next game is another big one. It's Reservoir taking on South Morang, and of course we saw last week the Mustangs have shown they've got what it takes to match it with these good sides. And we know a couple of weeks back they played on the same ground down there at Reservoir, and very nearly got that win at Chris Park. They were actually leading by 20 odd points with not long to go. South Morang, as you know, kicks the last 5 or 6 goals, gets the win. In a game they felt they pinched, and Reservoir will use that just as motivation this weekend. I think South Morang, coming off that bye last weekend, hadn't lost the week before against Pant Hill. They'll be raring to go. I reckon just raring to get back on that winners list. So it's going to be a ripper because both sides have plenty to prove. So much at stake. South Morang, while it looks like they will come first, it's not guaranteed just yet. Reservoir has to just keep winning to keep Pant Hill away and take that 4th spot. And with so much at stake, I reckon it's going to be billed as one of the biggest games we see in Division 3 this year.
Yeah, it's amazing. We with South Morang, we know how much that loss in the first round hurt them, and then they obviously were fantastic for 12 wins in a row. After that,
11, I think 11 wins over 12 weeks.
So gee, 3 months of footy, they were fantastic, and then obviously after a bit of a tough, I think it was 4 points they went down by the week before the bye. So and they'll had a fortnight to sort of stew on that, and you think that they'd be equally as hurt by that one and will come out breathing fire this week. And I think that Reservoir obviously great last week, but as you said earlier, they're a bit up and down. And I think if South Morang come out really hot from the start, they could maybe bring out a little bit more of the down in Reservoir's form. That should be too good.
It's funny how much things change in a matter of a week. We saw it last weekend. We saw the fixture. We said, well, Pant Hill's got a big week, a couple of big wins on the board. Going to last week's game, they were taking on St Mary's. I guess on their home ground they might have gone in slight favours. When you just saw Reservoir taking on Parkside in the game, you thought Parkside would win. You just thought, if anything, perhaps Pant Hill would come away from last weekend's results with a 2-game buffer inside the top 5. It's gone the other way, and Reservoir's back in now on percentage, and it's hard. It just changes week by week. It's so hard to predict into what's going to happen in just another week's time. But we saw the same thing happen in Division 2 last weekend. Myself and CT were just saying how Mernda's win against Thomastown elevated them to a chance where they could almost avoid relegation, despite looking like doing that all year. And they had that big win. We thought against Hurstbridge they could have a really good showing. We felt that Fitzroy Stars would account for Thomastown. It's all gone the other way now. Mernda, just a week after thinking they're a good chance of probably holding on to perhaps second last in Division 2, looks like they're going to be going down with a pretty disappointing loss against Hurstbridge on the weekend. In a game where they're right in up until 3/4 time, the last quarter just not going to plan, and it's a pretty tough a game this weekend to turn around against the Diamond Creek side, which had their biggest win of the year.
Yeah, it's amazing with Mernda. We said they were right up in the game until 3/4 time. They were almost out of the game up until half time, and they were down by, I think it was about 3-4 goals at half time. But then a great third quarter saw them go in just 2 points behind at the last break, and then it got blown away completely. I think it was 9 goals to 1 behind in the last quarter, which is a bit unlucky for Mernda. Obviously, a slow start, and they'd really like to fight and claw their way back into it, but then just let it slip at the end. So maybe they had to expend a little bit too much energy in catching up, and then just couldn't run out the game. But yeah, you think they'll probably go down now. But again, for Mernda, they've had some troubles this year, and they've got a lot of young players in. So similar to position the same areas they're in, they've got those kids. They've pretty much had a whole year to get that experience. So if they do go down to Division 3, they'll definitely be one of the dangerous sides in Division next year.
Well, you just look at their best player from the weekend. Jesse Owen-Strape was a young kid who should be playing down in the under-19s team, and he's been named best in his team's result. He's been the best a couple of times against some of the more experienced and higher ranking teams in competition as well, so he's one of the players for the future there. Diamond Creek, who takes on Mernda this weekend, fantastic to see them get a win against one of those top 4 sides. It opens the door wide open for that second spot still in Division 2, because Layla, of course, getting a loss. We felt that if Epping had won, they would have moved into second spot for the first time. Not to be in Diamond Creek, it was close. You look at the score sheet from it, and half-time scores are level, 3/4 time scores are still level. Diamond Creek having a lot more scoring shots, just a bit wasted in front of goal, and in the end just running away in a game where I think we all felt that Epping would probably end up winning that one, but a good win there at Coventry Oval, and you think against Mernda this weekend they can make it 2 on the trot. Fitzroy Stars host Laidlaw this weekend, and both sides having a loss on the weekend. Fitzroy Stars, it's a pretty disappointing result. A couple of weeks back they played Thomastown, won the NAIDOC Cup in a game they won by 8 goals, and you go back to the same ground 2 weeks later, we had good memories on the ground, but just absolutely blown away in that third term. 11 goals to one behind, and I don't know what happened there. I know that the Breeze can be quite strong out at Thomastown, and you look at the way the scoring went, where Thomastown got a lead in the first quarter, Fitzroy Stars got that back in the second, but 11 goals to 1 behind is just they would know isn't acceptable, and in the end get belted by 11 goals at a ground they won by 8 goals 2 weeks earlier is a pretty disappointing result for Lalor. A good showing for 3 quarters against Lower Plenty, and very much in the game, down by just 2 goals going into the final quarter. Unfortunately, weren't able to hit the scoreboard, and as we know, Lalor's another ground where that wind just blows a gale at times. Peter Shepherd actually used down back, they're a bit undermanned, lost a few defenders, and he goes down back, showing he's a versatile player, but it obviously hurts their forward 50 when he's not down there. So a 26-point loss, not the end of the world. They'll take Lower Plenty on at some point in the finals as well. They'll go in pretty confident, but Lower Plenty with that win, just probably overcoming some demons that were brought up after that round 6 loss at Sydney Crescent Reserve.
Yeah, it's amazing. Ever since that game, obviously, which was we saw that one and just didn't seem like the Lower Plenty we'd seen all year when we watched them, and we obviously heard their scores and things. I mean, they've just been a dominant side, and that day they just don't know what it was. They just didn't seem to sort of click or anything that day, which was a bit of a shock for them. But then it'd be great for them to get a win last week. So as you said, they get rid of any sort of lingering doubts there. But it's amazing that third quarter with the Thomastown Fitzroy, it was 11-8 to 1. So it was 19 scoring shots to 1 in one quarter, which is just I don't think I've ever heard that sort of thing. Like, it's just massive. So it could have been even worse for Fitzroy. But I don't know, when we saw them against Epping, Fitzroy, they had patches. They obviously got blown out in the first quarter, but they were pretty good after that. So if they can show up and produce their best form, it could be a little bit of a danger game for Lalor. But Lalor should still win and should go in favourites. But we've seen Fitzroy can, if they're on, be a pretty good and dangerous side. They've got a lot of pace and they can really run off the half-back line. So if they show up at home, get a bit of support behind them, then they could maybe surprise Lalor, but you'd have to lean towards Lalor.
Well, Lalor's got so much to play for, obviously with second spot in the line, but we do know Fitzroy Stars are going to be pretty keen to make up for that performance last weekend. Going back to, I think it was round 2 or 3 this year, when Lalor actually led, Fitzroy Stars actually led Lalor deep in the final term, so they've shown that they actually do match up with them. I know last time at Victoria Park, Lalor got the win pretty comfortably, but Fitzroy Stars have shown in that earlier game they can match it with Lalor, just a matter of if they can bring in a better four-quarter performance this weekend. Lower Plenty up against Hurstbridge on the weekend, and we've seen some pretty remarkable scores when Lower Plenty's taken on Hurstbridge. First time around, booted 17 goals in the first quarter. Last time, 100-0 at half time. Hurstbridge, they'll be buoyed by the fact they got that win on the board last weekend. They had a pretty tough month of football, a pretty tough 6 weeks of footy really, and bounced back in good style on the weekend when Murden pushed them. They could have just fallen over and just gone into a scrap heap and almost been relegated, but they fought back hard, massive last quarter. They'll take some of that confidence into this weekend, but Lower Plenty really has beaten up on them in the 2 times they've played this year.
Yeah, the hope for Hurstbridge's sake, we don't get another sort of score update in a half time with a similar to one to last time when we got that 100-0, and that was incredible. That was amazing to see. So hopefully Hurstbridge can get a better showing this week. I think there's no doubt in my mind that Lower Plenty will win. You can't really tip against them, but just for Hurstbridge's sake, hopefully now that they do look like they've cemented they're not going to go down this year, so they can just get a little bit more competitiveness against those big sides, and then who knows what will happen in the next year or two. But yeah, it's definitely going to be, I think, a win for Lower Plenty.
Well, I guess they have got first spot wrapped up in the ladder now, and it'll be interesting to see how they approach the last couple of weeks before finals. If they do perhaps rest a few players or play in different positions just to get a look at them before finals. But I know the reserves are obviously in fantastic form. We touched on that during the pre-match on the radio on the weekend. Haven't lost a quarter all year, and the under-19s as well, going forward magnificently. So the club's in a pretty good position. It'll be interesting to see some of those players from the reserves that are brought up into the seniors in coming weeks to see how they perform, should they be required in final time. But the Lower Plenty club is in a pretty good position at the moment. There's one more game for us to cover, and it's Epping at home to Thomastown, and Thomastown a massive win on the weekend, and one of the better ones for the season. I know they have knocked off Lalor, but just a 11-goal win against Fitzroy Stars in a game where I did mention before they were humbled 2 weeks prior, and so good to see they've bounced back, and they were in a pretty dangerous spot. Had they lost that one, they were genuinely a chance to go down into the 3rd division, so a massive win when they needed it most. Epping, the fact that they lost last week, I think is just going to make life very difficult for Thomastown on the weekend, but they did play a couple of weeks back, and Thomastown can take a lot away from that performance. They in the end lost by, I think it was about 50 odd points, but they weren't blown away as many thought they could have been, and Epping had opened up a pretty good lead early in the game, and Thomastown did stay with them, so that's an encouraging sign. But You think after Epping loses that one, they still now have to win their remaining 3 games to take that 3rd spot and get the double chance in the finals. You think Epping's just got too much at stake?
Yeah, it's amazing when you look at what Thomastown could do the week after a loss. Obviously, going from 103, I think they went down by the week before.
Yeah, 107.
107. So, and then they obviously turned around with a massive win, and then obviously Epping now coming off the back of a loss, they'll be really fired up, and they'll have a pretty tough week on the track. You think, and they know that they've probably got a bit of a chance to slip there to get above Laylaw. Obviously, with Laylaw going down as well. But yeah, it was a great win for Thomastown last week. But Epping, I think, should really just bounce back. They're probably for mine the second side in Division 2 anyway. They're the probably closest that are going to get to lower Pointe this year. We've seen, besides that loss, I think they were within about 3 goals on most occasions of lower Pointe. So Epping just with too much to play for, and they should just be too good all over the field, I think, and they'll be pretty comfortable winners.
And well done to Michael Curry, 5 on the weekend, and he's been the dominant goal kicker down there at Thomastown. He's had a sensational year. We know he kicked that big bag against Layla and got him over the line back then, but he's been able to kick goals all year, and just to mention him because he's played some pretty good footy, as has Michael Manley, who's featuring pretty well in those Coaches Player of the Year votes. They'll be inside the record for the last time as well this weekend before it goes away until the end of the season when the winner comes out as a surprise on Best and Fairest night. But make sure, again, you do get around to the local ground. Just another reminder, junior footy has finals this week, and so does youth girls, so make sure you get around and check out the website for all the ground locations, and we'll see you again in the chair next Thursday to preview another massive round of football. We'll see you then, and thank you for your time tonight.